Greetings, diners, and welcome to another edition of the Snap Card Gourmet. Today, or actually the same day as all the other days, because all of this was done on a one day, even though I'm spreading it out over several weeks of Snap Card Gourmet episodes. But in this episode, what we're doing is we're going to cook up the dry rub steak that we prepared for the barbecue for our homeless meal of the week. The premium meal that you can afford if you were budgeting yourself well during the rest of the week. And it consists of a ribeye steak. This one is currently wrapped in plastic because it's been absorbing the dry rub that I put on it a couple hours ago. And it will soon come out of that plastic when I start to cook. What I am cooking on, I am also, in keeping with the Snap Card Gourmet philosophy, I am using probably the cheapest barbecue that you can get on the market. Well, you can get this a similar model to this in charcoal that's cheaper, but propane long term for the homeless person is probably the more convenient and better method to use. And there are other ways besides using these propane canisters for fueling them. If you happen to have a semi-permanent location, then you can get an adapter and use a 5-gallon propane tank, and that will substantially reduce your costs if you do that. And if you have a storage unit, you can keep your propane tank or tanks in the storage unit. And that, again, will keep your costs down. And in terms of flavor and all the rest of that, well, charcoal and adding in mesquite and things like that can really add to the flavor of your food. But in the case of ribeyes, which have their own fat on them, I don't find that adding mesquite or any of the other wood particles, it really makes that big a difference. And as long as the fat itself is burning, then you're going to get that nice smoky flavor from your meat. So that's fine. Now this barbecue, this particular one, is a 10-year-old model that I picked up at Walmart when I first got up here. And it has seen a lot of service over the years. Since I cook mostly for myself, I don't cook for other people for the most part. But I have cooked for other people with it. And, if you use this, plus, maybe another circular grill or whatever, you can feed quite a few people at the same time. Especially if you're just doing simple stuff like burgers and hot dogs and stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with these cheap barbecues. I do have a much better one. I have a nice stainless steel 2-burner job that is just gorgeous, but I don't use it because why bother? This one works fine. At least the last time I used it, it works fine. It worked fine. I don't know how it'll work today. We'll find out in a few minutes, won't we? It is rusty. I'll have a picture of it. Let's take the top off. And I scraped off the rust off the grill somewhat, although there is still rust and iron particles on there, but I can use the iron. I recently was hospitalized because I have acute anemia. So I'm not too worried about the iron. And besides, once the grilling starts, the fat and so forth insulates the meat from the rust. And then afterwards, you just scrape the fucker off, So no big deal. So if it's a little rusty, your grill is still good. Don't don't get rid of your grill just because it's a little rusty. Keep it and make it work until it drops. And this one hasn't dropped quite yet, although its owner is soon to drop. Alright, now I got to get it turned on and keep my flame on at the same time. Not so easy. Not for cripple. And see if it lights up. Ah! It lit! Okay, so it's getting heated up. Yeah, fire's still going, and that looks good. Now, normally, I would just cook right here with this structure, which is quite cheap and simple to put together, and gives you something, a facsimile of the outdoor barbecue of a suburban McMansion owner. But in your campsite or your homeless location. And what I've done is taken the small barbecue and propped it up on 2 of these aluminum folding tables, also available at Walmart at the low price every day of around 20 bucks each. And they're great because they're virtually fucking indestructible. They don't rust, and they're very lightweight. And then once you set it up, you have space on the sides for your prep stuff, your forks, your knives, all that good stuff. So it becomes almost like an outdoor grill, a typical outdoor grill. And I'm going to put the top on for a minute or 2 to let the grill heat up, and before I throw the steak on. One thing with the steak, as I mentioned, I did a dry rub on this steak. So I could just drop the steak on with just the dry rub, and it would be very good. No problem there. But it is nice, and a nice addition when you make a steak like this, that's as beautiful as this one is, to add some barbecue sauce to it. And really perk it up some. So I'm going to do that. And you can use just about any barbecue sauce. The high fructose stuff that Kraft puts out, whatever. And it all almost tastes the same because it caramelizes when it's on the grill, and you can't really taste all that much difference from one to the next, whether it's honey barbecue or spicy barbecue or whatever they call it. It all tastes almost the same when it comes out in the end. But for me, because I'm in Alaska and I want to support local industry, I am using Kenai Premier Old Alaska Style Spicy Barbecue Sauce. There you go. There it is. A very good sauce, and they're not my sponsor either. I need a sponsor. Somebody, sponsor me! So, I'm going to add a little of this stuff onto the steak, onto one side of it. Just a few drips, drops, drabs, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to add, or I'm going to spread it around. And, I could use lots of tools like brushes and shit like that to really, be a professional barbecuer. But I'm just going to use my tongs, which are good enough for this purpose, and to spread around the goop. And not load myself down with a bunch of tools that I don't really need if I am a homeless person. You want to work as minimal as possible. And, when I say homeless, it doesn't necessarily mean the person is a street lover. Because, a lot of this stuff, to do street living, it would be difficult at best. When I talk homeless, I'm more talking about people who are living in places like Super 8 motels and Section 8 housing and out of their vans, things like that. They can get to campsites, they can get to places that they can do some outdoor cooking and not be harassed by the Gestapo. If you are truly homeless and living in a tent on the side of a freeway, most of this stuff you probably can't do, or it would be extremely difficult anyway. So you have to remember that when I do these Snap Card Gourmet episodes. They're for the very poor, but not so poor that you've completely fallen off the cliff. When you're at that point, then you're pretty much limited in your cooking to heating up cans of soup and ramen noodles and maybe boiling an egg and stuff like that. Cooking up a steak in that situation is pretty tough. Now, one of the things about this cooking is I am breaking the rules here. Normally, in this complex, you have to be at least 10 feet from the building to do your any barbecue. So normally I would barbecue. I have a little table on the other side of this fence, which is 9 feet away from the building. But for today and this particular episode, I will do it on this side of the fence and break the rules a little bit. Hopefully nobody reports me and I don't get in trouble. Okay. Now, pinchers or tongs are indispensable. You can use them in many ways. I also have a fork here, which I can use, and I will probably, to turn it, or I could use the tongs. You can dispense with the fork if you want to. And we're going to let this guy broil on one side and broil on the other, and give it 5-7 minutes on each side, something like that. Depends on how well you like it done. We put the barbecue sauce side down to start, and we're going to add barbecue sauce to the top side as well. And that will, from the heat, get thicker and stick to the meat better as it cooks, and will also soak in. And that looks pretty good. Very yummy. And notice that plastic that we used to wrap the steak in, that also keeps this dish clean in the meantime. So I will have very little cleaning to do out of this episode of cooking. And one thing that I will be doing as this particular meal continues is I'll be slicing this meat up for a sandwich, as well as the main meal that I intend to have with it tonight. So I can do that inside this plate that I've used without contaminating it with the stuff that was inside the plastic, which probably it wouldn't harm me, but at the same time, better to be safe than sorry. So you want to watch out for that type of stuff. So I'm going to wrap this guy up. I'm not going to use him again, and I'm going to throw him out. Our disposable culture. And as plastics go, it's not a lot, but it's still plastic, right? So now, if you're looking closely, I'm not sure how well it's rendering out, but smoke is beginning to come out of the vents on the barbecue. So it's beginning to absorb some of that smoky flavor that's going to come through. And, normally, at this stage of the game, I would go inside and maybe surf the web for some Doom for 5 minutes, and then come back out and check on it and whatnot. But in this case, I'll stay out here with it while it's cooking. Although I may go out because I got to get a knife or something like that to check on it and slice into it a little bit and have a look at how well it's getting done. I can also use a meat thermometer, which is a good idea to have, even if you're a homeless person. And I could shove the meat thermometer inside of it to see what the internal temperature is. A 155 to 160 degree internal temperature would be about right for a medium steak of this thickness. But again, that's a matter of taste on how well done you like your steak. So mine will probably come out a little bit rare. We'll have to see on that. I am going to go in and get some orange juice. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with the OJ. Well, we're smoking pretty good now, aren't we? So we'll probably give this about 2 more minutes on this side as it cooks. It's on high. And you should let your steak thaw, not just from the freezer if it happened to be a frozen one, but warm up to almost room temperature before you cook it on the grill. Then you're going to get a more even cook, and it's going to look nicer overall once it's cut into. So that's an important part of your process. Let's see, any other details of cooking a steak I can think of? Not really. Thickness is very important on the barbecue. Never cook a steak on the barbecue that's less than 1 inch thick. You're either going to dry it out too much, or it's going to be, just, raw. And it's not going to be pretty on the outside. For me, I like my steaks black on the outside and still mooing on the inside. That's called Pittsburgh rare.